Let's be honest, there is nothing cooler than when a vocalist adds some of that rasp and distortion to their voice.
Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Exit life, enter night. Disorder, disorder. Now, somewhere between the sacred silence, I miss a confident being sad.
From Kurt Cobain to Rancid, Lamb of God, Smashing Pumpkins, distortion is here to stay. But what actually creates this amazing vocal sound, and how can you find it without destroying your voice? That's what we're going to talk about right now. Rasp and distortion are vocal effects that are created by the vibration of the false vocal cords, also known as the ventricular or vestibular vocal cords, vibrating along with the true vocal folds. The false vocal cords, or the ventricular vocal cords, are these large muscles that surround the true vocal cords, and they're designed to help you swallow and protect you from choking. I kind of like to think of it as kind of like a car. I don't know if you've ever had a car that like something got loose on kind of like the bottom part of the car, maybe like a part of the bumper or something like that. Here you are, you're driving along and everything sounds really, really fine. The car's just kind of humming along, but something comes loose and it starts dragging on the road with you. That's the noise that gets created by the false vocal cords that we've all come to identify as this really cool distortion sound. In most singing, the false vocal cords are not involved. In fact, in most Western singing that's kind of like based in the classical tradition, and I don't even mean like opera music, I mean opera and everything it's influenced in the last several hundred years, places a huge emphasis on creating a very, very clean tone, which is created by the true vocal cords operating just on their own. Just the true vocal cords are vibrating. However, in rasp and distortion, the false vocal cords also become slightly contracted when you're singing, and that's what creates that nice, cool, gritty sound. Technically, when anything besides those true vocal cords get involved in the vibration that you're creating in your voice, it creates what vocal scientists call noise and what you and I just call rock. So in heavier styles of music like rock, metal, grunge, and punk, that sound, that distortion, comes from the true vocal cords and the false vocal cords vibrating together. Now, traditionally, we can also say that distortion and rasp also usually occur on more open vowels like ah, and eh. They're also usually accompanied by a really high intensity, like a loud volume, and traditionally with a higher larynx and really high breath pressure. Put all of these together, and it's very easy to go from that ah to an ah kind of sound. To get an idea of what the false vocal cords sound like just by themselves, think back to like Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World. What a wonderful world. That's just basically the sound of the false vocal cords vibrating almost on their own with just a little bit of the true vocal cords. In most distortion, we're going to have much more of the true vocal cords involved to kind of create the pitch, and then some of that cool gritty tone comes from a little bit of the false vocal cords. So we can almost think of it in kind of like 3 tiers. We can think of it as just false, like, I see skies of blue, I see skies of blue, I see skies of blue. Now, before I show you a few exercises to help you find this sound, you absolutely have to sing well first. You absolutely have to find that clean vocal tone first. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because if you just learn to start singing with distortion and rasp and all of this kind of overdrive kind of sound, then you're going to learn bad habits that are really going to inhibit you from being able to sing higher. So it's so important that you learn how to sing with a clean tone first, and then just gradually add this in as a vocal effect. But this vocal effect should never replace good technique. By the way, if you want a fantastic singing course to teach you to sing across your entire range without breaking or straining, definitely check out my complete singing course, Master Your Voice, only course out there featuring personal feedback from a real vocal coach, plus a proven system of exercises. Now, I also want to warn you, don't just come to these exercises right off the bat and start practicing. You really, really want to start slow and maybe even just a few minutes a day, and probably no more than 5 to 10 minutes per day when you're starting off and finding this sound. It's really, really important that you don't make this just a habit, but instead this is just kind of like a tool that you can pull out whenever you need it. Oh, you see that there's a particular note that you need to make it sound more exciting. Oh, cool. I can pull out this tool and I can use that on that instead of it being and dominating your entire vocal technique. Finally, if you feel pain, stop. There's a lot of evidence that shows that singing with too much of this distortion can lead to vocal problems and vocal pathologies that you don't want to even get into. The truth is there are a ton of singers that never had any kind of training in this stuff, and their vocal cords can take that abuse night after night. And oftentimes, that's kind of like a genetic thing of like how much abuse your voice can take and it can still function. But there are also a lot of people out there whose voices are way more sensitive, and even doing this wrong a few times could permanently damage it. Okay, now that all the warnings and the liabilities and the conditions are out of the way, I'm going to have you sign a waiver. So what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate this exercise on kind of like a middle low note for most guys. So we'll start off right around here, like on a G3 for the guys, and we're going to demonstrate this on the vowel A, like you're saying ape. So what we want to do is we want to say ape, nice and clean. Remember, start off with a clean tone first. Then, once you've found that note clean, let's start to add in a little bit of distortion, kind of like adding it in like ape, 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 ape. Now, let's do the same thing for ladies. Now, for ladies, we're going to start right around this F4 right here, which is in the middle of my first passage. So it's probably not going to sound quite as similar for you, but just know that you want to choose a note that's kind of like in the middle to the top part of your chest voice. So for you, you're going to start clean like that, and then start to add in some grit, like that. Now, let's go back and let's do the exact same thing on an O vowel. So trying to take that same feeling for the guys on that O, and then add in a little bit of that distortion. O. Now let's do the same thing for ladies. We're going to sing that on O again on that O, clean first, and then let's add in some of the distortion. O. Next, let's pretend that we have a distortion pedal that's built into our voice. A distortion pedal, in case you're not aware, is basically this little pedal that you plug into your guitar amp, and it adds distortion to the sound of your guitar. And just like most of the pedals, it's meant to be stepped on. When you step on it, it activates it, and it adds some distortion into your tone. And so what we can do is we can pretend that there's a distortion pedal in our voice, and we can start to kind of lean into it and then lean off of it to take some of that effect off. And this is kind of what you can do on some of those vowels, like A, that are kind of like in the middle to top part of your chest voice. So let's try something for guys. We'll try again that A, but this time rather than just going clean, we're gonna go clean, dirty, back to clean. So A, and go ahead and try that again on your own. So A. Wonderful. Now let's do the same thing for ladies. Again, starting right around that F. So let's go A. Now you'll notice for each of those, I'm increasing the intensity, which is going to help the false vocal cords contract. Now, oftentimes, we really want to watch the volume to make sure that it doesn't come just from the false vocal cords. In other words, you want to make sure that there's some clean tone in there first, and then you're adding that in, rather than just starting in, just starting from there. In our final exercise to find rasp and distortion, we're just going to go with what works best. And oftentimes, in terms of vocal sounds, that comes from imitation. So you can listen to lots of different songs that have this distortion effect. I'm going to go ahead and just use James Hetfield as an example. He's a very, very heavily distorted singer. He sings with this distortion sound quite a bit. And what I like to do is he has this kind of trademark kind of sound that he does. Yeah! He does a lot of these kinds of kind of vocal affects. And I want you to just kind of play around with these and see if you can do it in a way that doesn't hurt you. Again, if you feel pain, stop. But oftentimes he'll go for this He'll start off with that E, and then release to kind of a yuh, like a Y-U-H. So yeah, yeah. Go ahead and try that on your own. And then, if you want, you can also try to apply that to other vowels. And one that he tends to do a whole lot is on a yeah. He'll kind of like go, yeah, and all of it will have some distortion. Now, you'll notice that that yeah is on that same vowel that we already tried, on that kind of eh or that a kind of sound. So like, yeah, and just try to do that in a comfortable place in your voice and see whether you can make that feel comfortable for you. And in general, you want to make sure that it's not hurting at all. Now, however you find this distortion, I wouldn't recommend practicing more than 5 to 10 minutes a day with this kind of sound, unless you're working with a trained vocal coach that really knows what they're doing. Even the screaming coaches, kind of like Melissa Cross, for example, really emphasize being able to sing with great breath control, control of the pitch, and also not raising the larynx as you sing. And these are all key ingredients in making sure that you're not hurting yourself. So I believe that there's actually some acceptance among these kind of screaming teachers. Growling, distortion, and stuff is really good, but it should be practiced along with great vocal technique. And it's okay to do it sometimes, but you shouldn't let it completely replace your vocal technique. Guys, I hope you found this video helpful. Just remember that if you're wandering through YouTube land like a lost little lamb trying to sing better, maybe a little disappointed with your results, definitely check out my complete singing course, Master Your Voice, the only singing course offering personal feedback from a real vocal coach, plus proven exercises to help you sing better.